Good evening, everyone, and welcome. The official meeting of the regular board is already called to session. We were in committee of the whole closed session. I will now like to rise and report from committee of the whole closed session. Items that were dealt with pertained to personnel, confidential communication from OPSPA, and legal matters. Please rise for our acknowledgement and national anthem, and please turn off your cameras while this occurs.
We would like to acknowledge
that we are here today
on the traditional territory
of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation.
Nous tenons à reconnaître que nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel
des Mississaugas de la Première Nation de Credit.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Canton grâce et porter le pays, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Before we proceed with our agenda this evening, I would like us all to observe a moment of silence for the lives of three brothers that attended our schools and that we lost this past week. The names of the boys who died are Alex Baggin-Overholt, age 9, Riley Baggin-Overholt, age 12, and Cohen Baggin-Overholt, age 15. Mother Heather Baggin was delivering her 5-year-old son Nate to daycare when a fire broke out at their home on Ellis Drive near Torbram Road and Clark Boulevard in Brampton at around 9 a.m. We also have a 21-year-old sister named Taylor. Our moment of silence will begin now. Thank you. As we continue with our meeting once again this evening, I invite trustees to ask questions on the reports by staff and the delegates. All questions by trustees can be placed in the chat, and I will facilitate asking them and identifying the trustee who has raised the question. Approval of the agenda. I approve the agenda for this evening. I have no conflict of interest to declare. I would like to move that we convene into committee of the whole open session to hear delegations. This evening we have 5 delegates. Each will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to delegate. I will provide a signal by raising my virtual hand when the delegate has 2 minutes remaining, and that will provide each an opportunity to bring their presentation to a close. Also, please be aware that the views and opinions expressed through the delegations are those of the delegate only. The Peel District School Board does not endorse or verify or is responsible for the information and opinions expressed by the delegate. Thanks again to the delegates for coming forward this evening. We will start with 7.1 on the agenda, delegation by Justine Silva regarding ill effects of masking, social distancing, and school closures. Mrs. Silva?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, thank you.
So should my video be off because it doesn't seem to give me an option to turn it on?
It's up to you, whatever you'd like. If you can turn it on, we can certainly hear you.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. I do have a slideshow that I would like to share. I'm going to just bring it up on my screen. Oh, am I allowed to share a slideshow?
You may. Yep.
It's saying only organizers and presenters can share, so I'm not sure why it's not allowing me to do that.
Sorry, just
immediate-
give me 1 second and you should be fine.
Thank you. Sorry.
It's okay. No worries.
And is it okay now?
Yep, I'm just browsing my computer.
Yep, we see it
Okay.
now, Mrs. Sola. Yep.
Okay, very good. All right, so good evening, and thank you again for allowing me to speak today. My name is Justine Silva, and I'm a concerned parent. I'm speaking to you to address the unjustified masking and forced social distancing of our children and the damage caused by unwarranted school closures. After more than 2 years of this pandemic, scientific studies, along with historical precedents of the Supreme Court, do not support masking. In the Supreme Court of Canada, the Ontario Nurses Association. I'm speaking to you to address. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
In the Supreme Court of Canada, the Ontario Nurses Association won against unreasonable and illogical mask policies in 2015 and 2018. Doctors, infection control, and mask experts testified that there was insufficient evidence to support that forcing healthy nurses to wear masks during the influenza season did anything to prevent the transmission of influenza. A quote from Pfizer's board member, Dr. Scott Gottlieb. Scientists understand that the virus which causes COVID-19 is transmitted via airborne particles. Cloth face coverings aren't very effective at stopping those particles. Cloth masks aren't going to provide a lot of protection. That's the bottom line. The OSHA website states cloth face coverings do not provide effective respiratory protection when protection against airborne hazard is needed. And the FDA emphasizes that N95 masks are not designed for children. Are you aware of the many adverse health effects that can be caused from lack of oxygen and increased levels of carbon dioxide that are caused from prolonged mask wearing? The CO2 level in exhaled air is 100 times higher than in fresh air. Masking can cause adverse skin reactions, trigger asthma and allergies, cause headaches, dizziness, and risk of bacterial pneumonia from rebreathing your own respiratory waste. The effects masking has on a child's learning. The early years of a child's education are critical to building language, pronunciation, and phonological skills. Masks impede all of the facial cues and expressions that students rely on to build these skills. 95% of communication is nonverbal. It is done through facial expressions. This is how we humans communicate with each other and learn empathy. Therapists are reporting a tremendous increase in speech delayed children due to masking. The scientists and doctors whose reports and studies unquestionably prove that masks are ineffective, along with the medical professionals who voice their concerns about the safety and long-term psychological effects of masking, are being silenced and even fired for speaking out. But the most severe and dangerous consequence of these mandates is the damage it is causing to the emotional, mental, and psychological health of our children. McMaster Children's Hospital reported an almost 300 increase in youth suicide attempts between October 2020 and January 2021. In those 4 months, there were 26 youth admissions to McMaster Hospital following suicide attempts, more than 3 times the number recorded in the previous year. The National Institute for Mental Health reports that there is 1 death for every 11 non-fatal suicide attempts. So according to that statistic, if there were 26 attempts, then at least 2 children succeeded in taking their own lives. Let me put this into perspective. The COVID-19 Ontario website shows 5 deaths with COVID, not necessarily from COVID, in the 20 and under age group in the past 24 months. So let me be clear, no healthy child has died from COVID. These were children with other comorbidities that died with COVID. Nevertheless, if you multiply the factor of successful suicides to get a number for the last 24 months, it would estimate an astonishing 12 deaths from suicides. This would make the number of deaths from suicides double the number of deaths with COVID in that age group. So let me repeat that. For the age group of 0 to 20, the number of deaths from suicides in just one hospital are double the number of deaths with COVID in all of Ontario. The school board emphasizes on keeping our kids safe, but their safety is not defined by their medical health. It also includes their mental, physical, and emotional state. The school board has accomplished to prove to the students that their mental health is less important than making a triple vaccinated adult feel safe. Because let's face it, it is not and never was about the children's health. Most children already have natural immunity by now, and they were always at the lowest risk of becoming severely ill, most having no symptoms at all from COVID. Lockdown, school closures, and other restrictive measures are the very reasons suicide rates in youths have skyrocketed. And these mandates cause more harm to children than coronavirus itself. The government and the media have promoted irrational fear, and you complied. Maybe you complied because you thought you had no choice, because it was what you were told to do by public health. You're just backing them up. But don't be surprised when the government and public health does not have your back, when you're held individually liable for the damage caused to our children. You have all been served notices of liabilities. It is a legal document, and you will be held accountable because your number 1 obligation and duty was to do your due diligence and act in the best interest of the children, and nothing supersedes that. So, my question to the board, where is your risk-benefit analysis and your due diligence? What scientific data has public health provided to the school board that justifies these measures? Why has the school board chosen to neglect its duty and due diligence to advocate in the best interest of the children and follow unwarranted mandates instead? And how much monetary incentive has the school board received from the government to enforce these mandates? I'm asking you to please stop choosing fear and putting masks on our children. Masks don't work. School closures don't work. And this vaccine does not work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Silva, for your presentation. Appreciate your time. If there are any questions of clarification from the trustees, we'll take them now. I would ask that people please refrain from using the chat. Purpose of the chat is for the trustees to provide questions. We don't want to get into any sort of debate on it. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, seeing no questions, we can move on to second delegation, Natalie Neal, regarding vaccine mandates. Please go ahead, Ms. Neal.
Okay, I also have a PowerPoint that I sent earlier.
Okay, would you like, can you put it up, or do you want somebody else to put it up?
Yes, can you? I sent it ahead so that somebody can put it up. Or I can put it up if you can let me know how I share my screen.
Yeah, I think there'll be somebody from media will help provide you with that access.
Okay. It says you're a presenter, you can share.
Yep, you can go ahead and share it now.
But it just shows me dismiss. You're a
I'm
presenter,
sorry.
you can share content and facilitate the meeting, learn more, dismiss.
It's
there-
right beside the leave button. It's the square with the arrow going up. You select that arrow, and then you pick which screen you'd like to share.
Oh, I see that arrow. Okay. And I would like the screen. Yeah, the screen.
Yep, we see it now.
Okay, so I'm going to go to full screen for my presentation. Okay. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to ask this board members and trustees if they are planning to vote on the childhood vaccine schedule as a requirement to attend school. Malcolm X was speaking about racism in this statement. However, today we're facing down the barrel of a divided society, where with every vote in this direction is a vote for a divided education system for our children. I am multiracial, with slaves and masters in my family tree. Segregation wasn't okay then, and it isn't okay now. Two classes of citizens is not the Canada this immigrant child ever thought that she would see. But today we can see the hate and division in our communities, division between family and friends over vaccine mandates. Are we too blind to see that this could be voted into our schools? When Justin Trudeau refers to law-abiding, unvaccinated Canadians as taking up some space, and do we tolerate these people? Where else in history have we heard such discrimination and hate directed at one group of people? Sadly, this has emboldened many officials to discriminate and enforce illegal policies that cannot be found anywhere in Canadian law. Mandates, policies, and strong recommendations are not laws. The media is currently running divisive polls about what to do with the unvaccinated. How can we expect that this will not transfer into our schools and our children? How will unvaccinated children be treated? When they are within their legal right to decline being a part of a human trial, which ends or is expected to end in 2023, will they be forced to use a separate entrance or certain hallways? Where do they eat lunch? Can they cheer on the school team? Do they sit at the back of the class? Or will we move them to their own district to be re-educated like the residential schools we're only now learning the atrocities from? You see, democracy is a delicate minority governance. It guards the rights of the individual, no matter how different from the majority. Where is the data? Several school boards have voted in favor of vaccine mandates, and I'm going to quote Ottawa School Board Trustee Lyra Evans, where she says any student who is not vaccinated against COVID-19 will be re-enrolled in virtual school. In an open letter to Premier Doug Ford last week, pediatricians confirmed online school is harmful for many reasons, but due to time and restraint, I won't be able to list them all. But they go on to say, COVID does not cause serious illness in most children and youth, nor has there been an unmanageable increase in pediatric hospitalizations due to the virus. Forced into online learning will create a different class of person, and that's the definition of discrimination. One group of students receiving a secondary education versus the proven quality of in-person learning. Education is the legal right of every child in Canada, free from any form of discrimination. How will this affect their futures? We already know the harm to our youth is exponential. For the trustees and the board, are you planning to vote on adding COVID vaccines and boosters to the childhood schedule? If so, what medical expertise do you have to provide these medical recommendations? Can you provide any risk-benefit analysis reports conducted by yourselves, the board, or was provided to you by public health or the province that support these medical treatments treatment requests, masking, social distancing, vaccine schedule. Have you ever recommended a student climate survey to access how your students are feeling under your supervision? If you did, it would break your heart. I hear it every day from my children and their friends. The teachers are forced to spend more time on masking and protocol. They don't have time, and they don't get to see the children struggling behind the mask. The fear and anxiety children feel when they see the adults who are supposed to be the safe people, panicking, angry, and frustrated. It's also about safety. Some children have never seen their teachers' faces. For those new to school, who are the safe people in their school? Do they know who are the safe people in my school? What do they look like? And more importantly, do they know what I look like? By recommending masking and mandatory vaccines added to the childhood schedule, you would be actively practicing medicine without a license, and this is actually a criminal offense in Canada. If you have made such recommendations, I would ask on what basis and what data, and would you be willing to revoke this recommendation? I'm not sure if you're aware, but this is Canada's first vaccine injury program ever. The United States has VAERS, and this is Canada's. For the very first time, we are acknowledging risk and harm. And here is CTV last August stating that of the 400 claims made so far, fewer than 5 have been approved. That means if people have been injured, they're not being cared for. What are the current statistics? Chief Medical Officer Kieran Moore, the death of children is exceptionally rare from the virus. 45% of COVID-related hospitalizations in Ontario are not due to COVID. And this weekend, Bonnie Henry, COVID-19 transitioning to become much more like how we manage influenza and other seasonal flus. We cannot eliminate all risk. If we have symptoms that might be COVID, that might be influenza, that might be a cold, we have to stay home until we feel better. Further, CDC Rochelle Walensky supports 75% of COVID deaths have more than 3 or more comorbidities. 5 to 24-year-olds, risk of death is 0.001. No healthy child has died from COVID. Why the rush? Meet Sean Hartman, healthy 17-year-old, just wanted to play hockey with his friends. There is no compensation for his death because the coroner cannot rule or label his death. Vaccine companies have no liability. They won't even stand behind their own program or product. This is Dean Allison from Niagara West, and he currently has a petition in the House of Commons for a cease and desist on all vaccines and boosters, and he is quoting the VAERS reporting system. VAERS is grossly underreported by about only 2% is reported. And here they're claiming over 800,000 adverse events since the vaccine. This actually has increased as of today and is over 1 million. So what is the rush? Why can't we wait to see? We've only had this vaccine a few months. I have a question for you. I have a bowl of 100 jelly beans. In the bowl, there is 1 jelly bean that will kill you, 5 that will leave you with a life-changing condition, and another 10 that will give you some kind of adverse reaction to. But you don't know how serious. Now tell me, would you like a jelly bean? Would you give a jelly bean to your child? Why can't we wait? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Neal, for your presentation as well this evening, and I'm in receipt of the information. If there are any questions of clarity from the trustees, we'll certainly entertain those as well. Seeing none, thank you again, Ms. Neal. Moving on to 7.3, delegation by Naveed Sadikali of Mercy School regarding keeping school boards stable. I hope I didn't mispronounce your name. I apologize if I did.
Yeah, my name's Naveed Sadikali. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna just share my screen here and get going. So give me 1 sec. I just settle in. Okay, let's try and share this. Okay, I'm the presenter. Share content. Screen. Are you able to see my screen?
I can, yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. I'm just gonna go full screen here if I can. And if that's working, I'm gonna start.
Yep, it's working, thank you.
Okay, good. Good. My name's Naveed Sadiq Ali. I have 2 little ones at Oscar Peterson in grade 2 and grade 5. And I wanted to discuss about what I see as a great risk to our school system. And so a little about me, 23 years in high-end healthcare scientific design. I helped to end the medical film industry. If you remember back in the day, it was printed film, and that impacted hundreds of millions of people a year and still does. And I'm also a director at a science firm focused on some of what's going on today called Mercy. I'm going to switch to slides here. Okay, so when I say scientific design, what I would say is that these are medical imaging. These are huge machines that build images. And if you've been to Credit Valley, which is one of the places that we've deployed the things I've designed, it goes to systems like this one, which go ahead and help to diagnose your heart, your stroke, every condition actually in radiology and cardiology. And so that's specifically what I've done for a living pretty much for most of my career now, on 23 years. I've been in more teaching hospitals than anyone I know in Canada and probably in the world. And there's pretty much no type of imaging that I haven't been involved with, and that means I've been involved in healthcare in high-level facilities, working for months on end with some of the best people in the world in their specific domain, whether it's children's health, often with cardiology and other areas. And so this is some of the teaching hospitals that I've been working with. What I want to do is talk to you about some of the science and really just give you 3-4 points. I'm not going to try and do a scientific seminar here, but what I want you to know is that John Ioannidis is probably one of the, if not the, near the top epidemiologists in the world from Stanford, one of the most important scientists, and his paper stands as the best IFR, what's the fatality rate from COVID, and that's before Omicron, by the way, which is less, that we have, and it says that 0 through 19 survival rate, looking up here in the middle, is 99.9973%. And what that means, because I want to translate it to you, is that this is as dangerous as a bee sting, but for healthy kids, it's actually less. And so what we're seeing actually is paid media is marketing fear, and paid scientists are twisting severity. And I won't go into all the ways that twisting has happened. Maybe but this is first baseline. What are we dealing with? And this paper is available, and if you ask me, I'll provide it to you. Another interesting data point is that kids are not at risk to teachers. They're actually the lowest transmission of anyone we have in society, and schools are the safest places in society. And Dr. Paul Alexander, who was on the WHO, the U.S. Task Force for COVID, Hamilton-based scientist, ex-WHO professor, just one of the best people that we could even draw upon in society. And he's got all these papers put together, and he has a whole drpaulalexander.com blog about it. But what I really want you to know is that children are not a risk to anyone else, nor even to each other. So there's a lot of games being played, and scientists like ourselves have been frustrated for 2 years. What I want to leave you with on the science point, because I've made the case already that the kids are not at severe risk from anything, mortality from these viruses. But what I want to leave you with next is that they are at risk from the vaccines. And so here's 4 different studies right on the screen. You can go to these links. But let's look at the top left. Hong Kong, 428.9 per million post-vax myocarditis in boys. Okay, this is specifically higher elevation in boys. And what that means is in those boys, it's about 1 in 2,000 kids, and it's additive. So if you get a third jab, it'll be 1 in 1,000. And then if we go with the Omicron, as you probably know, there's a 3-dose series being proposed for Omicron. And if we go for that, then it'll go to 1 in 500. So what my concern is that we soon will have every high school will have a myocarditis casualty, period. How can we be doing that? And anyone who tries to tell you that this is myocarditis is equally common in COVID is absolutely not on base. But we're not here to debate that science. We're just here to let you know that the risk elevation is so high that many scientists and ourselves are calling for a full halt in children and even into the lower age groups. There's just no justification with these kinds of rates. So I want to leave you with one thing. I know you can get overwhelmed with science, but because you guys are part of the school board, I mean, I want to teach you to fish, okay? So let's just look at 100 people get COVID or vaccinated, 100 who don't get vaccinated, get COVID. We're going to have 0% efficacy, right, for the vaccine. You can kind of understand that. But what I want to teach you, and this is the magic trick that happens across all the studies over the last 2 years. I'm teaching you something that you can apply for the rest of time, so listen real carefully. The magic trick they're playing is what they say is in the first 14 days, if you get a jab, we're going to call you unvaccinated. We're not going to call you vaccinated. So instead of the 100, 100, we have 50 and 150. Guess what that efficacy turns into now? 7% efficacy. Now, do you think if I go jabbing people and then they get sick, and I'll tell you why that might happen, and then I say, oh, look, it's really working. Do you consider that fraud? Would you want to buy a product like that? Or would you say that's actually fraud? That's actually what's happening. And here's right on Ontario's website, unvaccinated cases, you have to go to a little pop-up where symptoms started between 0 and 14 days after receiving the first dose of a COVID vaccine. I know it seems it couldn't be so simple. You couldn't just be a simple scam like that. That's being, and other things too, like PCR testing. We are jabbing people, making the vulnerable sick, and labeling the unvaccinated if they get sick in the first 14 days, which actually happens frequently when there's an endemic virus. Because a vaccine is these vaccines are actually little fake viruses. They're lipid nanoparticles that induce an immune response. So they make you sick. They're actually making you sick with the idea that maybe that'll help you down the road. But when they make you sick and then you get exposed to the COVID SARS-CoV-2 virus, you're going to get sick. And when that happens the first 14 days, you're unvaccinated. So that's the magic trick. And I want you to really understand that. And that's, to me, is indictable fraud. And we're going to go after these people. And there's a lot of people working on this. But what I want to say is that all of this leads to the fact that, looking at it from another point of view, if we have a lot of these kids in our school system that were mandated to do things and that they have these high rates of myocarditis, everybody's going to know that. And that'll lead to broken trust and destabilize our school system. And, I know that I've looked at the rates of increase in homeschooling. It's 500 to 700%. And, as a parent, I'm actually thinking of how they'll kind of try and use their schools for vaccination clinics because they've done that in the past. How do we keep our kids from having to have an implicit, consent where we don't want it to happen, but suddenly one day it just happens? These are actual real concerns that we wake up in the morning with, the people who know about this. Many people don't know anything about any of this. The school system is an intended target for forcing compliance. I just say resist. We're all going to have to do a lot of hard work to resist because you're dealing with a crime of proportion unlike any in history, based on simple statistical frauds and testings and marketing, an immense marketing plan. Scientists must now fight a $1 trillion industry with full spectrum integration into government, media, military, and healthcare. Don't think for a second that our government does science. Don't think for the CBC scientists like Brian Goldman. They are not doing science. They only appear to give you scientific opinions. I am 100% sure many of these people are paid. I can't say for sure who they are, which ones are. But when I see them never talking about science, never talking about the way that these statistics have been bungled with these 14 days, then I know that something really bad has been happening. And so we all have our challenges. And, from my point of view, we will have to push back on everyone in society. And you will have to, in a sense, perhaps be opposition to us. And we hope that's not the case, but you will understand why we're doing it. We're doing it to protect you. We're doing it to protect science and the integrity of truth. All right. So I just want to leave you with that. I thank you for your time. And we really are in a difficult scientific situation, and no one's talking about the science. And take away that one point and look at it yourselves, and go back and look at the Pfizer study, look at all the data, and you'll see that actually is the case. Last point I'll leave you with is that we've written a letter for parents, and you can look at that, and that'll explain more about what's happening, because it's really hard to understand. I'll be honest with you. You have to have been tracking hundreds of thousands of data points over your lifetime to be able to triangulate all these things. Why does this industry work this way? What happens here? Who are these people? Like, I understand you're in a soup, or you're in a thing you can't even understand. So this letter is helpful to a lot of parents, and we've shared it widely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sadikali, for your presentation. Appreciate it. I'm in receipt of it. Any questions from the trustees for the presenter? Again, I ask you to please refrain from using the chat. We've provided you an opportunity to come into the meeting live. It really is a vehicle for us to kind of work with in terms of communication. So we really appreciate you not using it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to 7.4, delegation by Catalina Margulis regarding anti-bullying. Ms. Margulis. Hello.
Hi.
Good
Hi.
to see you. Do you have a PowerPoint as well?
I do not know.
Okay, so then you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. My name is Catalina Margulis, and I'm the mother of 4 children that are in the Peel Public School system. We're fortunate to live in the same neighborhood my husband and I grew up in, and my children go to the same schools that we attended. Needless to say, they're having a very different experience. These past few years have been especially challenging for us all, and I don't diminish the responsibility of parents, caregivers, teachers, principals, trustees, supervisors, and governments who have so many people entrusted to their care. My eldest son just turned 13, and I struggle every day as a parent of a teenager. It's a stretch for me to let him go, to let him leave with his friends, and trust he'll come back to me safe and sound, for him to meet new people and trust that these people will be good and kind to him. I get to believe he can go to school, meet up with friends, ride his bike, and that he will not be hit by a car or a bus or a truck or hijacked or shot. I get to believe he will not be bullied at school or shamed or violated or attacked, that he will not face prejudice or hate or discrimination or segregation. These are huge leaps of faith that I take every day, and to do so, I must have faith in my fellow human beings, that they will do the responsible thing and not check their phone while they are driving or drive under the influence, that my neighbors and the people living and working in my community are kind, good, responsible people, that we are all looking out for each other, and most especially for our children. I believe everybody in this room can relate to the fear and to the faith. In these divisive times, I want to remind us all that our existence hinges on community and trust in one another. We didn't get this far by social distancing or isolating ourselves from our friends and family. And so what I want to call on you today is to remember that faith in each other, to remind us all that we are on the same team, that we want the same things, and that we can accomplish them together. Martin Luther King Day recently passed, and it was a great reminder of the heroic acts of our history. He said we must use time creatively in the knowledge that the time is always right to do right. He also said we must learn to live together as brothers, or we will perish together as fools. I will also remind you in this time of censorship, when we are discouraged, indeed punished, for asking questions or having diverse opinions, of another great Martin Luther King quote: "The function of education is to teach one to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education." It is not, I may point out, blind obedience and adherence to rules that no longer make sense or can be proven to be just. I also want to remind you of the definition of bullying, which is to seek to harm, intimidate, or coerce someone perceived as vulnerable. I believe we see this everywhere today, and I believe we all know that the systemic bullying is wrong and a violation of our human rights and freedoms and our human dignity. And now I call on you, on each and every one of you, to do what's right. That may seem impossible as we face this global pandemic, and yet from Martin Luther King to Rosa Parks, Viola Desmond, Gandhi, and Nelson Mandela, all it took was one man, one woman to change the world. That in a world of faith in the dignity and kindness of man and our fellow human beings. That's all they did. That's all they had, a respect and love for their fellow humans and human dignity, and the belief that we are all entitled to it, even the minority, even our children. I got to say that through this whole pandemic, it's our children who have been the greatest of heroes. They did what we told them to do when we told them to do it, without question, with unfailing trust. They willingly gave up access to fresh air to protect their grandparents. They stayed away from their friends. They gave up their graduation celebrations and assemblies, field trips, plays, presentations, competitions, and performances. They gave up having their parents and families cheer from the sidelines. They stayed in their rooms and social isolated. They accepted the needles and the swabs, the online learning, the loss of sports and extracurricular activities that made them feel purposeful and alive. Indeed, they gave up their lives for those they loved and for complete strangers. And my question is, when is enough enough? Technically, childhood only lasts a short time. By definition, it's the human lifespan between infancy and adolescence, extending from the ages of 1 to 13. Depending on how old your child is, they may well have spent a third of their childhood in isolation due to the pandemic. They may well have grown out of childhood through this time. That time is never coming back. They'll never have a chance to do their grade 8 or high school graduation a second time. They'll never get to be 5, 6, 7 years old again. We know developmentally there are milestones that only occur for this brief moment in time in a person's entire life. And our children have sacrificed so many of these. So I ask you again, when is enough enough? We know that COVID-19 virus of today, thankfully, is different than the one 2 years ago. Many of the reasons our governments and medical communities have for putting forth the recommendations no longer exist or are obsolete. We know the virus doesn't care whether you have the vaccine or not, and that the vaccinated are as much, if not more susceptible to contracting it. We know that masks do more harm than good, and the negative impact of them on children's health, development, and psychology. We know that children are at nearly 0% risk of death from contracting the virus, and that the overall survival rate of minors is 99.997. We also know that there have been more deaths from COVID-19 injections in 5 months, December 20th to May 21, than deaths recorded in the last 23 years from all vaccines combined. It is further reported that only 1% of vaccine injuries are reported, and so those numbers are likely much higher than that, the risk of which increases the younger a person is. We know that some adverse events are more common in the young. We also know that we do not know the long-term effects of the vaccine. We know that natural immunity is longer lasting and also better equipped to fight off the virus and its variants. We know the virus is always one step ahead of us. If Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks had looked around them, they would have seen circumstances that were bigger than they were, systems and bureaucracies that were beyond anything they could penetrate. And by a leap of faith, courage, and imagination, they were able to topple them. We are not victims of circumstance. We are victims of our collective lack of imagination and courage. And that can change today, right here, right now, with you and with us. As Franklin D. Roosevelt said, courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear. It's through imagination and innovation that our doctors and scientists are finding new ways to fight the virus. We cannot live in the past. As the virus evolves, so must our protocols. The good news is that the COVID-19 virus we're facing today is much milder than in the past. Previously, it was known that children were not negatively impacted by the virus and that the measures we put in place were to protect the vulnerable. The measures we imposed were not to protect the children, but their families and communities. That is no longer necessary. Today, the vulnerable, our families and communities, thankfully have access to many measures they could take to protect themselves. From getting the vaccine to the booster to masks if it makes them feel safer to social distancing, they have so many ways to protect themselves and ensure their safety. They no longer need our children to do it for them. Our children are heroes. They have sacrificed everything these past 3 years. They have sacrificed something so precious and irrevocable as their childhood. And so I ask you today, I appeal to you, can we now put our children first? Can we, with gratitude for their sacrifice, reinstill their freedoms? Can our kids learn to swim, take skating lessons, play with their friends, attend school and learn without fear, masks, social distancing, cohorting, school shutdowns, vaccine mandates, and other restrictions imposed due to the COVID-19 virus? Can our children be free from bullying, shaming, coercion, censorship, segregation, and discrimination? Can our kids finally be free to be kids again? Finally, I know the pandemic is not over. Indeed, many would say it's here to stay. Many experts are saying the virus will behave more like a cold or flu, with some years being harsher than others. Scientists and doctors will continue to innovate new ways to combat and treat the virus. In the meantime, we too must innovate. The way through this, I believe it's clear now, is not by locking down or hiding under the covers in fear. The way through is innovation and imagination, something our kids have plenty of. Whether that means smaller classroom sizes or education pods inside and outside the public education system, the future is wide open. Everything is possible. If we dream it, we can create it, even a whole new paradigm for learning. But let's do so with the intention of creating something better. Let's do so based on a vision that's inspiring, empowering, and evolving. Rather than retract and hide in fear, let's expand and create something extraordinary. A place where our children can be free, a place where they can truly thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Margulis, for your presentation. I am in receipt. Do trustees have any questions of clarity for Ms. Margulis? Seeing none, I thank you again. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7.5, delegation by Tabitha Chapman regarding COVID-19 mandates for teachers and children. Ms. Chapman.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I don't have a presentation. I'd like to just read.
Go ahead. You can start now.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Tabitha Chapman. My 7-year-old son, Darius, attends Terry Fox Public School. My 8-year-old niece, Kira, attends St. Kevin's. I'm also the Brampton chapter leader for Action for Canada. In December, we hand-delivered over 100 signed notices of liabilities to each trustee, superintendent, and director of education of the board. These notices are meant to notify you of the detrimental harm the public health mandates you continue to enforce and encourage are causing to our children and the people in this community. They are to educate you of the laws that are being broken and the charter protected rights that are being infringed upon. They were meant to put you on notice that we are upset and we are prepared to hold each person served liable for the harm these mandates continue to cause us. I'm speaking here today as a representative for the people in our community, many of which are also on this call. I want to appeal to you, not in your capacity as board trustee, but as our representative, as a parent, and especially as a citizen. As a citizen, we each have the legal and moral obligation to uphold the law. Mandates are not laws. They are recommendations. According to Section 52 of the Constitution Act 1982, the Constitution of Canada is the supreme law of Canada, and any law that is inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution is, to the extent of the inconsistency, of no force or effect. According to the Public Health Agency of Canada, Canadian National Report on Immunization 1996, vaccines are not mandatory in Canada. They cannot be made mandatory because of the Canadian Constitution. Masks are not mandatory in Canada. The Genetic Non-Discrimination Act Bill S-201 states that it is an indictable offense to force anyone to take a DNA/RNA test or deny any service, employment, or education opportunity to anyone who refuses to take such tests. The punishment is a fine not exceeding $1 million or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 5 years or both. Extortion, committing tort, privacy violations, willful misconduct, assault and battery, and acting in bad faith are serious indictable criminal code offenses. Interfering with someone's right to gainful employment or essential and non-essential services is a further violation of the Constitution and Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We have lost thousands of incredible teachers and school staff because they chose not to be injected with the experimental drug COVID vaccine, as it is their right to do so. I have seen reports of staff shortages to the point where senior retired teachers are being asked to come back to teach. There is a mass exodus of both children and teachers leaving our school system. According to the Nova Scotia Home Association, they are seeing 500% increase in homeschooling inquiries. The US Census Bureau reports an increase to homeschooling from 5.4% in 2020 to 11% in 2021. That's double. Teachers are leaving and parents are leaving the school system because we have lost trust in the people we entrusted to care for our children. As a mother, I am sad and anxious and disgusted watching my 7-year-old son's breathing hindered because he's being forced to wear a mask to school. It is our charter protected right to breathe freely, yet our children's breathing and development are being hindered because of these mandated masks in school, which have not, I repeat, not been proven to stop or even slow the spread of the virus. Common side effects, however, of mask wearing includes headaches, drowsiness, dizziness, reduced ability to concentrate, a reduction in cognitive function. Also, given that the development neurodegenerative disease can take years to manifest, we cannot ignore the potential long-term harms of continual mask usage in our children. The stressful impact of masking also runs the risk of having a damaging and permanent impact on our child's immune system. But public health continues to enforce that they be worn in schools. Why? There is a staggering 24 to 31% increase in emergency mental health hospitalizations and an alarming increase in suicide and suicide ideation in minors because of the harmful COVID measures being enforced. Minors are at nearly 0% risk of contracting or transmitting this respiratory illness and are instead buffers which can help others build their immune system. The overall survival rate of minors is 99.997%. Further, schools are reportedly a very low risk of transmission of this virus. The very fact that retired teachers are being asked to come back to schools prove that our children are not at risk of spreading this virus. But public health continues to encourage that we vaccinate our children, even going as far as to have vaccination clinics in their schools. We have been asked to trust the science. Well, this is what the science is saying. According to the VAERS, which is the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System put in place in 1990, over 1.9 million COVID vaccine adverse events have been reported as of January 14th, 2022. Some of them are over 22,000 cases of COVID vaccine reported deaths, over 13,000 cases of Bell's palsy, over 11,000 cases of heart attacks, over 27,000 cases of myocarditis or pericarditis, over 39,000 cases of permanent disability, over 11,000 cases of shingles, over 3,600 cases of miscarriages, over 38,000 cases of severe allergic reaction. This is just to name a few. Over 118,000 cases of hospitalization. Isn't this what the vaccine was supposed to prevent? Given these risks, why would I still be advised to vaccinate my little boy who has a near 100% survival rate and a low rate of transmission? The cure cannot and should not be more damaging than the cause. The vaccine, these COVID mandates and restrictions are causing serious harm and even death. We don't want them near our schools. In closing, I'd like to make a comparison to some of the disheartening feedback that I have received from some of the trustees, even my own superintendent. The common feedback is, we will continue to follow the recommendations of public health, or we are just enforcing what was told by public health. I draw a correlation to the Nuremberg defense, which was used when the Nazis were brought to justice. It scares me to see that history is repeating itself. I'm just following orders is not an acceptable defense. Again, the law states that as a citizen, we are each personally responsible for upholding the law. We are already starting to see our leaders being ordered to appear in court to account personally for the COVID-10 measures that they continue to enforce. Sorry, COVID measures they continue to enforce. BC's Health Minister, Bonnie Henry, is an example of this. She will have to appear in court in March of this year. We will continue to see this happening around the world. We are now finally starting to see that these mandates end. The UK, Scotland, Ireland, the Czech Republic have all canceled COVID-19 mandates, including masking, forced vaccinations, and lockdowns. Why is public health still continuing to enforce them? I am asking you to open your hearts to the fact that mistakes have been made and they continue to be made. Ask questions. Use your voice as our elected trustees. These forced, deadly mandates must end. We, the community, want them to end now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chapman, for your presentation this evening. Ask the trustees if they have any questions of clarity. Seeing none, again, thank you, Ms. Chapman. I'm in receipt of your delegation as well. That brings to conclusion all of the delegates this evening. We've provided access to the meeting to the delegates and their guests. I would now ask if they would please sign out of the meeting that you've provided access to, and you're more than welcome to come back to the meeting and sign in through the live stream. That would be very helpful. So thank you all again, and we'll continue with our meeting this evening. Given that many delegations were related to COVID and we have a COVID update scheduled this evening, I would like to move item 18.1 to be moved up and presented now. So if we could, actually just before we do that, I'd like to just rise and report from Committee of the Whole open session. I would like to rise and report on items dealt with in the open session of the Committee of the Whole, essentially 5 delegations, and they are listed in items 7.1 through 7.5. Having done that, I would now ask that item 18.1 be moved up and presented now. Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask Superintendent Claudine Scocato to provide COVID update number 14.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. As a part of Peel District School Board's ongoing commitment to student learning and student safety, the PDSB is responsible to operationalize and cooperate with the guidance, orders, directives, and mandates of the Ministry of Education and Peel Public Health, as well as the Chief Medical Officer of Health. Please accept this oral report as a summary of recent updates. Daily class closures in 30% numbers. In our continued commitment to transparency with our community, I would like to share with you the number of class closures as well as the number of schools that have issued their 30% letter to the community. This information is also available on the board website on the COVID-19 safety measures page. The difficult decision to close a class to in-person learning occurs when there is an insufficient supervision and instruction available to a class due to the high number of staff who must isolate when they are symptomatic or have a family member who is symptomatic. In order to ensure the continuation of learning, in the event when the educator is in isolation but can continue to work, the community is notified and the class is moved to online learning until the isolation period is over if an occasional teacher is not available. As well, to support ongoing monitoring and public transparency related to COVID-19 impacts on schools, The ministry is requiring that all schools monitor their own absence rates and report on student and staff absences and school closures daily through the absence reporting tools. Schools are being asked to notify the community and Peel Public Health by sending a letter if a 30% absenteeism threshold is met. As of today, the total number of PDSB class closures was 17, and the total number of schools who have issued their 30% letters is at 3, 2 in elementary schools and 1 in secondary. COVID-19 cases. The Ministry of Education and Peel Public Health no longer require schools to report positive COVID-19 cases in their schools. However, to ensure the continued safety of our students, staff, and community, when schools become aware of a PCR or rapid antigen confirmed case of COVID-19 directly impacted classes and staff will continue to be informed. As the Ministry of Education has shared, individual classes or close contacts will not be automatically dismissed, but PDSB will continue to provide staff in our community with COVID-19 updates through the issuing of a letter to impacted staff and classes. Now I will refer to Massima Kangura, our Executive Officer of Human Resources, Partnerships and Equity, to discuss attestation numbers for staff, vaccination status, and online instruction.
Thank you, Superintendent Scocaro, and good evening, everyone. Through you, Director Swaroop and Supervisor Rodriguez, I'll present an update regarding staff immunization disclosure data. Thus far, staff who have declared no as their vaccination or immunization status are 7.18%, which constitutes 1,727. Staff who have declared yes as to being fully vaccinated is 90.50%, corresponding to 21,750, to a grand total of 97.67 declaration data, 23,477. With the return to in-person student learning, teachers and educators who are teaching online are continuing to deliver instruction from their school locations. Some of the factors that have guided our decision to balance student learning and staff engagement directly relate to maintaining adequate levels of supervision in both elementary and secondary panels. In addition to collective agreement supervision obligations, timetable schedules, and teaching assignments, and to maintain optimum levels of remote instruction, minimizing technical disruptions, a sense of belonging and engagement to the respective school community. We sincerely thank all PDSB staff for their continued efforts regarding their safety and safety of others around them. I'll now pass it back to Superintendent Scocaro.
Thank you, Executive Officer Kangura, and through you, Director Rodriguez. Supporting vaccination opportunities in Peel. As shared by the ministry and supported by the Chief Medical Officer of Health, vaccination continues to be the most effective strategy in the protection of COVID-19. The province has committed to providing greater access to COVID-19 booster shots for education and childcare staff, and those opportunities have been widely shared by PDSB's public engagement and communications team. As a part of our strong partnership with Peel Public Health, we will continue to promote vaccination opportunities for students aged 5 to 11 and prioritization of vaccination for education staff, including sharing our school locations with Peel Public Health to host our clinics. In partnership with Peel Public Health, all vaccination clinics held in PDSB elementary schools during the instructional day will require a parent or guardian to be present when a vaccination is given. Staff and student masking. Staff masking. The Ministry of Education has shared that board staff will have the option to wear a non-fit tested N95 mask, which the ministry has provided to all school boards in Ontario. We have been assured by the ministry and Peel Public Health that the PDSB issued ASTM level masks that are currently available for staff continue to be appropriate for use. The new non-fit tested N95 masks are optional. As per the ministry, the N95 mask meets the same National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health standards as fit tested masks, but have not and are not required to be fit tested. Student masking. All students in PDSB from kindergarten to grade 12 must wear a mask unless they have been approved and have a signed mask exemption. The Ministry of Education is providing PDSB with this expanded access to free, high-quality 3-ply cloth masks for students. They are available in all schools and students are encouraged to use them, but these 3-ply masks are not mandatory. They can wear their own. Daily screening. The Ministry of Education, with the support of Peel Public Health, has mandated that all schools reinstate daily on-site screening confirmation for all staff and students. Due to the changes in the symptoms present in Omicron, PDSB elementary students will carry a duotang with the Peel Public Health screening poster, and parents and guardians must read the list, verify that their child can go to school, and sign. Secondary students must complete the ministry school screener online and verify the results with their educator each morning. As the daily COVID-19 school and childcare screener has changed, a more sensitive COVID-19 symptom list has been implemented for daily active screening of all students and staff in schools and childcare. Staff and students age 12 plus must isolate for 5 days or 10 days if not fully vaccinated, and until their symptoms have been improving for at least 24 hours. Students age 5 to 11, as they might only be single vaccinated at this point, have only to isolate for 5 days until their symptoms have been improving for at least 24 hours. The days start from the date of their symptoms onset. If students or staff have a negative result from both the PCR test or from 2 rapid antigen tests, they can return to school prior to their 5-day isolation period if it has been at least 24 hours since their symptoms started improving. The ministry is also requiring that household members, including siblings, stay home until the household member experiencing symptoms is cleared from their isolation. Please note that we will not be asking students or families for proof of vaccination status. Rapid antigen tests. Through support and direction from the Ministry of Education during the last week of school prior to winter break, all in-person students were given a box of 5 rapid antigen tests to support students and families with their safe return in January. Families who did not wish to participate had an opportunity to opt out of receiving the kits by letting the school administration know. After we distributed all kits to students, there were many kits that remained, and as a board, we decided to distribute these kits to as many school-based staff that we could, so that the reserves would not sit in schools and could be used by our staff working directly with students. We saw a tremendous demonstration of collaboration as families of schools worked together to get kits to as many schools and staff as possible. These kits differ from the kits distributed monthly to unvaccinated staff who receive kits of 25 as part of their mandatory testing through the immunization disclosure mandates issued by the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education sent all school boards in Ontario, including PDSB, shipments of rapid antigen tests for distribution to all in-school staff and elementary in-person students. Each elementary student and all staff members received 2 test kits last week. Tests for secondary students will also be available once the ministry has additional supply. Ventilation. I would like to ask Controller John Hartsema to share an update about ventilation.
Thank you, Superintendent Sciccato. Can everyone hear me? Very good, thank you. Thank you, Director Swarup, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to share an update on the status and the enhancement to the board's ventilation and filtration systems, and to highlight the tremendous work of the maintenance services and facility services staff in supporting the improvements to air quality in Peel schools. Since the start of the school year, staff have continued to ensure that all Peel District School Board heating and ventilating and HVAC systems are properly maintained and operating at their optimal level, while ensuring that those spaces not served by mechanical ventilation have received standalone HEPA filtration units. HEPA units in all Peel District School Board schools have been deployed in accordance with the ministry's direction. In the month of September, this included the deployment of 1,800 units. Since that time, an additional 480 standalone HEPA units have also been added. These units have been deployed in every classroom which is not served by a mechanical ventilation system or filtration system, as well as our kindergarten rooms. Additionally, HEPA units have been provided to support specific needs, such as those in special education rooms, instrumental music rooms in our secondary schools, mini grade 1 classrooms, and any non-ventilated gymnasiums, lunchrooms, libraries, and school offices. In addition, the board has supported our childcares with a deployment of 70 units. This now brings the total number of standalone HEPA units currently deployed to Peel schools to 2,928 units. We continue to await the delivery of the remaining 138 HEPA unit allocation from the province. which, when received, will also be deployed in accordance with the ministry's direction and support the balance of the grade 1 classrooms. All mechanical ventilation systems serving the balance of classrooms and other spaces have had several enhancements made to improve the air quality, including upgrading of all filters to MERV 13, increased frequency of air changes, and increased hours of operations, to name a few. In addition, over the past 5 months, the board has upgraded the air purification systems for schools by completing the installation of UV induct air treatment systems in each of our HVAC systems throughout the board. This represents a significant investment and enhancement in the filtration and air quality of our facilities. Lastly, I would like to share that the Standardized School Ventilation Measures Report, which utilizes the ministry's template in providing school-level ventilation enhancement information, is designed to enhance transparency for school communities and has been completed and posted on each Peelschools website. Thank you, and I would now like to return it back to you, Superintendent Sciccato.
Thank you, Controller Hartsema, and through you, Director Rodriguez. I would like now to take the time to acknowledge the incredible resilience and support of PDSB students, staff, and families who have had to adjust to significant changes and ongoing updates of guidance for the board to follow and operationalize in the ministry and Peel Public Health's pandemic approach. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Sciccato. Thank you, Director Swaroop. Thank you, Controller Hutzma, and thank you, Ms. Kangura, for all of your detailed work on this particular piece. Just await any questions from trustees if they have any, and then we can move on. Seeing none, I appreciate the detailed report again, and thank you for your work this evening. I'm in receipt of the report for item 8.1, COVID update. Moving back to item 9.1, Black History Month, February. The contributions of Black people to Canadian society are recognized and celebrated each February to acknowledge the 400-year presence of people of African descent in this country. Black History Month provides the opportunity for the Peel community to learn more about and celebrate the diversity and richness of the histories and heritages of the African diaspora. The limitation in how we engage caused by COVID-19 does not dim commitments to continuing this meaningful tradition. In fact, our current realities, the ways anti-Black racism is exacerbated by the global pandemic, all point to the necessity of Black History Month observances. Black History Month is an opportunity to acknowledge and tribute the optimism and ingenuity, strength, and contributions of notable African Canadians, as well as the advocacy of members of the African, Black, and African Caribbean communities here in Peel, whose activism prompted the ministerial directives, which instruct on the steps to laying down the foundation for the future of Black students. When we create the conditions for Black students and staff to thrive favorably with positive effects on well-being, that is Black flourishing. Black flourishing is also the theme for Black History Month this year. Black History Month acknowledgements of Black flourishing in Peel schools does not replace the systemic integration of Black, Caribbean, and African experiences, histories, and contribution in all curricular areas throughout the academic year. However, we know that Black flourishing is an exciting and inspiring promise for Black students the ministerial directives enable. Item 10.1, retirements. I would like to acknowledge all our retirees and thank them for their many years of dedicated service to the Peel District School Board. We wish you every success in your future endeavors. The following are our retirees: Marianne Antonacci, Maria Barros, Peter Bokic, Nina Bowden, Dina Burkett, Shirley Chang-Ing, Natalie Sakala, Georgina Khan, Sangeeta D, Elise Dittner, Nicole Downs, Sherry Goldstein, Sandra Haynes, Allison Collodi, Jersey Kupka, Diane Laplin, Lisa Lynch, Anne McCann, Timothy Mosher, Pilsemi Nezhkin, Betty Preaching, Cindy Rocha, Jamie Shatsky, Kate Simpson, Charles Stewart, Lavinia Tibolo, Deborah Van Helvoet, and Elizabeth Vigario. Thank you again for your many years of dedicated service. Moving on to item 11, board chair's announcements. I have two announcements. One is the Green Square campaign against Islamophobia, and I'd like to take a moment and acknowledge that. 5 years ago, on January 29, 2017, the Islamic Cultural Center of Quebec City was subjected to a tragic, hateful, and Islamophobic crime. A gunman who was radicalized with white supremacist ideology entered the place of worship and opened fire on the worshippers, killing 6 men and injuring many more. Peelschools have had access to the Green Square campaign for educators. The Green Square represents the green carpets of the Quebec City Mosque where the victims last stood to pray. The activities and resources educate and equip teachers with their students to recognize and disrupt Islamophobia. January 29th marks the National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City Mosque attack and action against Islamophobia. I would also like to recognize that tomorrow, January 27th, is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. This date was designated by resolution of the United Nations General Assembly in November 2005. The day is an international memorial day for the victims of the Nazi Holocaust, which saw the murder of 6 million Jews, 2 million Roma people, and 15,000 people who were 2S LGBTQ+. January 27th was selected because it is the date when the Nazi concentration and extermination camp of Auschwitz-Birkenau was liberated by Soviet troops in 1945. Canada and the international community marked the 70th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp in 2015. The commemoration brought together government officials, religious leaders, and Holocaust survivors at a special ceremony. Confronting anti-Semitism and dismantling the systemic mechanisms that enable anti-Jewish hate to ensure the well-being and achievement of the Peel District School Board students reinforces the PDSB commitments to anti-racism and anti-oppression through engaging, equitable, and inclusive online and in-person learning modalities that are culturally meaningful. Moving on to item 12, report from student trustees. There are no reports from our student trustees this evening. Item 13, reports from trustees appointed to external organizations. 13.1, Trustee Lawton, 2021 Peel Learning Foundation year-end report. Trustee Lawton has already provided a written report, but I'll give her an opportunity if she wants to speak to that or if there are any questions about it. Trustee Lawton.
Thank you, Supervisor Rodriguez. I'm fine with the report as presented. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to receive them.
Thank you, Trustee Lawton. Is there any questions of Trustee Lawton? Seeing none, Trustee Lawton, thank you again for your comprehensive report on the Peel Learning Foundation. And I'm in receipt of the report.
Most well.
Item number 14, Director's Leadership Report, Director Swaroop.
Thank you, Supervisor Rodriguez. Good evening, trustees, staff, and community members. Last week, our Peel community mourned the loss of Alex, Riley, and Cohen Pagan Overholt, whose lives were tragically lost in a devastating house fire. As a mother, my heart aches for Ms. Pagan and their siblings, Taylor and Nate. Counselors from the Critical Incident Response Team were on site at all 3 schools the boys attended and will continue to support students and staff for as long as needed. Flags have been lowered at each school in their honor, and a GoFundMe page has been started by the group Malton Moms to help support the family. We are all still in shock by this tragic loss. Our community will deeply miss the kind, caring, and affectionate nature of the boys. Cohen's great sense of humor and his smile, Riley, who was not only smart but also quite observant, and Alex's infectious smile. Coming from a close-knit family, the boys were deeply loved and will forever be remembered. I would also like to take a moment to reflect on the horrific attack that took place on January 29, 2017 at the Islamic Cultural Center of Quebec City. This tragic, hateful, and Islamophobic crime continues to bring deep sadness to our school communities. We know this time can be increasingly difficult for Muslim staff, students, and families. Another date that I want to recognize is January 27th, the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Hate crimes, whether directed against an individual or a community, disrupt the unity of our society. At the Peel District School Board, we condemn all forms of hate, and we engage in this work through trauma-informed conversations, ensuring student and staff well-being. The safety and well-being of our students and staff has been front and center as we continue to navigate and respond to the challenges of the pandemic. I'd like to take a moment to thank the tremendous efforts of the COVID Task Force, a team that has been instrumental in preparing our schools and updating policies for a safe return to in-person learning. They have been working hard in collaboration with Peel Public Health and the Ministry of Education to help us adapt to the ever-changing circumstances around COVID-19. We recognize the challenges, the complexities, and the hardships that many of us have experienced over the past 2 years as we led and learned while caring for our families amidst a pandemic. It has not been an easy task. As an organization, we have and will continue to provide mental health and well-being programs for both staff, students, and families by offering resources, events, and support groups that are responsive and inclusive of our diverse population. I would like to speak to staff mental health and well-being today. Creating a culture of well-being and care is paramount to supporting our staff. The work they do in service to our students matters, and their well-being is a priority. Over the last 2 years, we have worked in collaboration with the Wellness Steering Committee, employee resource groups, and the Black Mental Health Day Committee to incorporate employee wellness and healthy workplace strategies for all Peel District School Board employees. This includes addressing staff well-being through the ongoing promotion and utilization of our Employee and Family Assistant Program, Homewood Health, the setup of a staff well-being intranet site, the expansion of Peel Perks, the Staff Well-being Toolkit, and regularly addressing staff well-being. As you see from our roadmap to workplace wellness, we will continue efforts to develop a unified vision focused on listening, responding, and forging meaningful connections while supporting individual, organizational, and community mental health and well-being. Our goal is to create a culture where well-being is actively embraced by everyone in this organization to ensure that Peel District School Board becomes a leader in workplace well-being. Next, I'd like to share an uplifting story that has made many of us marvel at the selflessness and heroism of one of our students, Adam Atala, who attends Meadowvale Secondary School, whom I believe has joined us tonight online along with his parents. On Saturday, January 15th, Adam helped 3 children in his neighborhood escape a 2-alarm fire. After spotting a 7-year-old girl trapped in a second-floor bedroom and 2 others stuck on the roof, Adam went to a neighbor's house got access to their roof, and jumped onto the roof of the burning home to open the window and help the 7-year-old out of the house. Adam and the 3 children then walked across the roof to the neighboring home to safety. I'm still in awe and admiration of his bravery and courage to risk his own safety for the well-being of others. We were able to speak with Adam earlier to hear in his own words what was going through his mind during the ordeal. I'd like to share that with you now.
Okay, so Adam, I just want you to know that we're all super proud of you at Meadowvale, and I was so excited to see that it was one of my former students that did that. So that's so cool. The first question that I want to ask you is, what went through your mind when you saw the fire?
To be honest, nothing really went through my mind at that time. When I saw the little girl trapped, it was more of like, it has to be done. There's no thinking about it, type of thing. So I just just ran in, did what I have to.
You just went for it.
Yeah.
How were you able to keep your cool and act so fast? Like I imagine, like I wasn't there obviously, but I imagine that the children were kind of panicky. So how were you able to stay calm and keep everyone else calm as well?
Well, in those situations, you can't really freak out. Like once you freak out, everything like goes bad. If you lose your cool, things could go really bad. So I just know during like these types of situations to always stay calm and try to keep everybody around me calm.
Awesome. How's it been dealing with all the media attention?
It's been a crazy few days. I'm super grateful for all the recognition I've been getting. I'm very thankful for that, and it's just an insane experience.
So for me, I'd heard about you helping the kids escape and the rescue and all that, and that was amazing. But one of the things that was almost even more impressive to me was when I saw that you'd started a GoFundMe as well for the family. So you went in, you helped save the family, and then you right away thought, I should probably use the spotlight to help the family out a little bit. What made you decide to do that? Like, what was your inspiration for that?
My heart goes out to the family because their house burned down. And that's not an easy thing to go through. So I thought they could use a little help. So I just started a GoFundMe to try to help them out a little as much as I could.
Okay, and then the last question that I have for you, we're at a weird time in society where like sometimes people would rather film something than to act and to help, right? So what do you have to say to other people that are your age about helping as opposed to just spectating?
I'm just gonna give an example. Just imagine yourself in their shoes. So if it was you stuck in that house, or if it was you on that roof, would you want everybody just to watch and record it rather than help you? That's the only thing I could think of at the moment. Everybody has different motives for whatever they do, and me as Adam, I just enjoy helping others, and it brings me joy as a person.
So that was Adam sharing how he, became a true hero in that moment, and he is. And so, Adam, all of us at Peel District School Board commend you for the bravery you showed in saving the children. Thank you for inspiring all of us to do good by helping others. And now I will speak to the workforce census. Earlier today, the Count Me In workforce census was launched. The census will allow us to capture race-based data about the composition of the board. We are asking all Peel District School Board employees to take part in the census from January 26th to February 18th, 2022. The census is being conducted by a third-party consultant, Turner Consulting Group Incorporated. Participation in the census is completely voluntary, anonymous, and confidential. You might be asking why the census is important and why you should participate. Here is a video of some Peel District School Board staff sharing why participating in the census is important to them and why they want it to be counted in. So here's the video.
Hello, PDSB. This month, we are asking you to take part in the Peel District School Board's 2021-22 Count Me In Workforce Census. All staff will be given the time and privacy needed to complete the census. It is completely voluntary, anonymous, and confidential. It will take approximately 10 minutes to complete, and both digital and paper copies will be available. You might be asking why the census is important and why you should participate. I'm completing the census because telling a story about our identities as individual employees and as a group with shared experiences, shared stories, shared histories is important. Collecting data about our identities and experiences as employees at all levels is important. We invited some of your colleagues to share their thoughts on why they are participating in the census, why it is important to them, and why they want to be counted in.
The census is important for us because for every piece of information we collect, we also see what's missing. And that's really important so that we can continue to improve.
The census is important to me, so we have accurate data that truly represents our families, community, and language groups in our schools.
I want to make sure that I will be represented in the decisions that the board will make to ensure that supports are put in place so that resource teachers and educators like me can best serve all of our students.
As an Afro-Caribbean immigrant working in the Peel District School Board, I want to be seen and heard.
To be honest, this is the first time I'm filling the census out because at first I didn't think it mattered. But now I realize that there are some issues that are important to myself and to my community that I want the board to know and hopefully make some changes.
Growing up, I didn't see myself represented in the school. So it's very important for me to ensure that students are represented.
As an employee within the board, it's important that my voice is heard. And as a leader in this board, it's important for me to listen to the voices of others.
I have the opportunity to share my voice, share my perspective, and a commitment to ensure that my workplace is safe, diverse, but more importantly, that it dismantles systemic barriers.
The workforce census is important to me because I want to see a positive and inclusive environment in the workplace.
The census is important to me because it gives me an understanding of the democratic reality of the Eastbourne staff community.
I strongly feel that the students feel better and they feel more comfortable. They learn better when they see their identity being represented at school.
My interest in the workforce census is that voices like mine are centered and become central to the board's decision-making around the promotion of an equitable and inclusive workforce.
This is my seat at the table. My participation will help to inform programs, policies, and set priorities.
Count me in for fairness. Count me in for equity. And let the record show a 20-year plus veteran of the Peel District School Board, count me in. Count me in for transparency.
To our colleagues, thank you for sharing these meaningful and impactful reflections with us. The results of the workforce census will help the PDSB be more effective and responsive to the needs of community, students, and staff. PDSB cannot be successful without you, so we are hoping that we can rely on you to say, count me in, and make your voices heard. Thank you in advance for participating in the PDSB's 2021-22 Count Me In Workforce Census.
Count me in.
Count me in.
Count me in.
Thank you to our colleagues who participated in the video for their sincere reflections with us. I hope that it will inspire all Peel District School Board staff to take part in the census. I am participating in the workforce census to better inform initiatives and programs that create a sense of belonging among a diverse workforce. The results of the census will help us be more effective and responsive to the needs of students, staff, and community. It will allow us to critically examine our data and look at ways to remove systemic barriers to improve conditions for all stakeholders. We invite all Peel District School Board staff to share their reflections on the newly launched Peel District School Board Workforce Census Padlet to let us know why the census is important to them and why they want to be counted in. We look forward to reading their responses and sharing their thoughts with their colleagues between now and February 18. Thank you in advance to all employees for participating in our 2021-22 Count Me In Workforce Census. We encourage you to take the time to be counted in as we transform our organization to support the diverse needs of all our employees, specifically Black, Indigenous, and other racialized staff. And here's an update on the ministry directives. During the month of January, the Steering Committee and Working Group for the 4-year Comprehensive Equity Strategy met to identify goals, objectives, and key actions to guide their next steps. Ongoing consultation will continue with our community partners, associations, unions, and Peel District School Board staff. In the upcoming months, an update will be shared outlining the various indicators and monitoring tools within the strategy. In addition, the development of the Black Student Success Strategy is underway under the direction of Turner Consulting, and this should be completed by the end of the school year. Despite the ongoing challenges of the pandemic, we remain steadfast in our commitment to fulfilling the ministry directives through our strategic planning, collaborative input, and amplifying student voices to guide our decision-making towards sustainable and transformative change. And now, on the topic of Black History Month, as we approach February, schools and work sites across Peel District School Board will be shining a spotlight on the contributions and achievements of Black Canadians and Black communities across the world. This Black History Month and beyond, the Peel District School Board will focus on the theme Black Flourishing, as Supervisor Rodriguez shared earlier. Black flourishing is a multifaceted concept that refers to a state of well-being where Black students and staff can thrive, grow, and prosper unencumbered. Learning about Black history gives us the opportunity to learn that the experiences of African, Black, and Afro-Caribbean people are diverse because they are not a monolithic group. When I recently attended the Student Equity Advisory Committee meeting, I had the opportunity to engage in rich dialogue about some of the changes our students would like to experience in their schools as we work towards creating more inclusive and identity-affirming spaces. Our students highlighted the importance of learning about how the historical and contemporary realities of Black, African, and Afro-Caribbean people must go beyond Black History Month. They said they want to learn about Black history throughout the year in all subjects. We also filmed a video where both staff and students addressed the importance of the education and celebration of Black history that I would like to play for you now.
Learning about Black history makes me feel included in school because I'm learning about my people.
My mind goes back to last year during this pandemic when an organization introduced to Black families and students a stock market challenge. It was a great way for Black families to learn investing concepts, budgeting and saving strategies, and a little bit of a history of Black money, where we learned a number of ways where Black families were able to save, invest, and start businesses together.
Achievements of Black people and accomplishments that they have made throughout history. And it makes me feel like like my ancestors have done something great for the world and for other people of the same background and culture, and I can do the same thing as them.
It's very important to recognize Black History Month because it gives us time to reflect on the contributions that Black society has had in our culture and in the world as a whole, and also reflect on the struggles they've faced throughout history and continue to face.
It is a good opportunity to learn about the things that were happening to millions of Black people and to bring up all the positive actions we've learned.
As a racialized cisgendered female, it is important for me to learn about Black history and Black culture from a perspective that centers joy and excellence and the remarkable accomplishments of Black people.
For so long in the education system, the only time Black people have been talked about is when talking about the transatlantic slavery. Black people have done so much more than be slaves. Black people have invented some of the most important technology we use today.
It is a deep honor for me to share my reflections on Black History Month. Black history is everyone's history, and it should be taught throughout the year. As we continue our commitment to addressing anti-Black racism in all its forms and the intergenerational trauma and impacts of colonization, it is important that all students learn about Black history. I call upon everyone to reflect on and teach the many positive impacts of Black history and acknowledge the celebration of strength, presence, resiliency, and history of Black civilization. Only then will we begin to make deep and long-lasting cultural changes towards a just society in our schools, across Canada, and the world. Those were the voices of our students and staff, and there's so many more that we will be recording and listening to this month and beyond. For me, Black history is important for the development of humanity and is critical to Canadian history, as you heard me share in the video. And I look forward to this meaningful change as we strive together towards recognizing and celebrating Black achievements throughout the year beyond February. And on that note, my remarks for today are concluded. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, for those remarks. Moving on to item number 15, the consent agenda. There are no items on the consent agenda this evening. Item 16, the approval of minutes from previous board and special board meetings 16.1 and 16.2. I approved the minutes of the special meeting of the board of December 8th, 2021, and the board meeting of December 15th, 2021. Item 17, receipt of committee minutes and consideration of motions, 17.1 and 17.2. I'm in receipt of the minutes of the Parent Involvement Committee, November 25th, 2021, and the minutes of the Special Education Advisory Committee, December 13th, 2021. Moving on to item 18, staff reports. We have completed item 18.1 and now moving to item 18.2, African Caribbean Committee, update number 2, Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask Associate Director Logan to present the committee report.
Thank you very much, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, and good evening, everyone. The first update for the Black African Caribbean Committee report was in June 16th at the regular meeting of the board, which provided an update on the progress beginning to undertake to co-construct a community advisory committee focused on providing the board guidance and support on African, Black, and African Caribbean student success and well-being to support the implementation of the Ministry of Education directions to the Peel District School Board. The purpose of this update report 2 is to provide progress on the actions taken to co-develop the Community Advisory Committee, in addition to the board's response to the correct requests made by the community. These will be outlined in the report with the focus on 3 areas: the Community Alliance, the work pertaining to the development of a Black student success strategy, and the developing work pertaining to the Center for African, Black, and African Caribbean Student Success. So I'll now call upon Donna Ford, Superintendent of Equity, Indigenous Education, Anti-Racism, Anti-Oppression, and School Engagement, to provide an overview of the report.
Thank you, AD Logan, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. The progress update provides a description of how the application of Directive 14, the 4-year comprehensive strategy and action plan, provides a context for the steps that are being taken by PDSB staff with community stakeholders, in particular our African, Black, African Caribbean stakeholders, to address and eliminate statistically significant disproportionalities in enrollment, achievement, and outcomes of Black, African, Caribbean, and African students in applied, academic, locally developed, special education, and regional programs. The report, as you've heard, highlights the specific ways in which these communities in their advocacy are ensuring that not only is the PDSB holding fast to its commitments to anti-racism, anti-Black racism specifically, and anti-oppression, and that these commitments are being realized through a series of accountability mechanisms, namely the co-development of a strategy focused on the well-being, flourishing, and success of African, Black, and African Caribbean students and staff, establishing a Center for African, Black, and African Caribbean student success, and commemorating the advocacy of African, Black, and African Caribbean communities. These works are occurring hand in hand with Peel African, Black, and African Caribbean Education Alliance, which is a newly formed advisory committee. And the purpose of the committee is to work with PDSB staff to address the disproportionate and disparate outcomes and experiences of Black learners, their families, and staff caused by anti-Black racism. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Ford. Thank you, Edie Logan, and thank you, Director Swaroop. We'll await any questions from the trustees. And while doing so, I thank you for the detail in the report. I was able to follow it quite clearly, and the 3 areas seem to be succinct in terms of what we look forward to in future reports. So appreciate all of that work. All right, seeing no questions, again, thank you for your report, and we look forward to future updates. I'm in receipt of the African, Black, African Caribbean Committee update number 2. Moving on to 18.3, Anti-Islamophobia Strategy Development Report, Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask Associate Director Logan to present the Anti-Islamophobia Strategy Development Report.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. I'm now going to present the Anti-Islamophobia Strategy Report. In September 2021, the board passed a motion to commit the school board to the development of an anti-Islamophobia strategy. The motion and calling for the development of a strategy is in response to the realities and ongoing experience of Islamophobia at the systemic and interpersonal levels that are endured by Muslim students, their families, and or staff in education systems across the province, including the Peel District School Board. The motion was followed by a press release and a conference in October of 2021, And of note is that the development of the board's anti-Islamophobia strategy is in collaboration with community and PDSB staff. I will now call upon Donna Ford, Superintendent of Equity, Indigenous Education, Anti-Racism, and Anti-Oppression in School Engagement, to provide an overview of the report, which outlines the strategy development and action plan.
Thank you, A.D. Logan, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. The development of the anti-Islamophobia strategy in collaboration with community and PDSB through Directive 14, the 4-year comprehensive strategy and action plan, serves to ensure that PDSB staff with community are vigilant in ensuring Peel schools are safe for Muslim identifying students and staff, and that their lived experiences are visible and represented in all aspects of their school and work experiences. This can happen only when anti-Muslim hate and Islamophobia are named, disrupted, and eliminated. The strategy is designed to attend to this goal. The steering committee, whose role is to guide the development of the anti-Islamophobia strategy, has been established and made up of the following members: community organizations, PDSB staff, including educators, school administrators, and equity department members, Peel DSB trustees, as well as representative from the PDSB Parent Involvement Committee. The search for a consultant to coordinate the co-development of the anti-Islamophobia strategy, including the process for community consultation, is now underway. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Ford, and thank you, A.D. Logan, again for a comprehensive report. I'll wait for trustees for any questions. Trustee Krug would like to say a few words, and I will entertain that based on the fact that this was her notice of motion. So go ahead, Trustee Krug.
Hi, everyone. Can you see me?
We can hear you. Yep.
Thank you. I just want to take a few moments of everyone's time just to thank the board and Supervisor Rodriguez and Director Rashmi and Superintendent Ford for really, allowing us to make this idea flourish. It's one thing to bring a motion to the board and to have it passed, but to have something developed, such as a framework of a strategy to combat hate in such a short period of time, is quite exemplary. And I really want to thank all the staff and all of the board support that we received as a result of this, as well as the community members and the organizations that were involved. When we first started this, and the first thing that I said at the first meeting was, I'd like to have bi-weekly meetings to get this started and moving forward, and everybody said yes. I was completely shocked. So I really, really appreciate all the support that this has received. We really don't have to look very far to find examples of Islamophobia. Even today, if you look all over Twitter, you'd find that there's been a tweet by a politician calling another politician, a federal minister, in fact, a terrorist over what's going on, who is of Muslim background. And of course, there's been a lot of people denouncing that comment, but really it just shows you that there's a lot of Islamophobia in our community and in our society, and there's a lot of people who are willing to capitalize on that as well. We also look to Bill 21 in Quebec, which also is looking to limit the religious freedoms of many faith groups, including the Muslim community, but it's also capitalizing on Islamophobic rhetoric that is widespread in our community. So I really want to thank everybody who's involved. I'm really looking forward to the next steps that are outlined in the report, and to have this completely developed, hopefully by the end of the school year, so that we can start seeing some active and action happening in our schools. Thanks again so much. I can't possibly express how grateful I am, and how grateful a lot of our community members are as well, as they've expressed that to me as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee DeCrube. Thank you again, Superintendent Ford and AD Logan, for your report. Seeing no further questions, we will await the next steps. I'm in receipt of the Anti-Islamophobia Strategy Development Report, and moving on to item 18.4, first quarter financial reports as at November 30th, 2021. Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask Associate Director Jaspal Gill to present this report.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. And the report provides board's actual expenditures up to November 30th, 2021. The overall expenditures are in line with those of previous years and are slightly below our benchmark of 25%. There are currently no concerns with our normal operating expenditures being within budget for the remainder of the year. In regards to COVID-specific funding, it will be fully utilized by the end of the year, with some need to supplement from the board's reserves or other in-year savings. Controller Alatache Charles and I are happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you again, AD Gill, and thank you, Director Swaroop. I'll wait for any questions from the trustees. Again, thank you for speaking. I had a question specifically about COVID in terms of your, from your expertise, what you thought we were in, but you've responded to that. And I just have a question on the GSNs as well. Do we have any change in the GSN based on enrollment this year, given what we've been seeing in terms of enrollment up and down on the October 31st numbers?
Through you, Super Rodriguez, as I think as the staff has reported that this year we did see a decline of almost 3,000 students as compared to what we estimated in March and April of 2021. So as a result of that, yes, there is a decline to the funding that we see, because most of the ministry funding is based on enrollment. So as part of that, we have made some adjustments. We have made some adjustment to our staffing levels, and we have used the COVID specific funding, most of it in our staffing, additional staffing that we need. So we made some changes to based on that, and we are confident that based on the expenditure that we have seen so far, that we will be in line with the funding that we will receive by the end of the year.
Great, thanks, AD Gill. And do you see any risk that we might not be able to tolerate ahead, given the first quarter?
At this point, there are no concerns in regards to the expenditure that we have seen so far, and that we are anticipating for the rest of the school year. As I mentioned, because of the COVID, we will be dipping into our board reserves, and we see that probably less than 1% of our operating reserves or the reserves that we have. Ministry is allowing the boards to use up to 2% of the reserves. So other than that, we don't see any other concerns.
Thank you again, AD Gill. Really appreciate your work with this. And thank you, Director Swaroop, and thank you to your team as well. I'm in receipt of the first quarter financial reports as at November 30th, 2021. Moving on to item number 19.1, transportation eligibility change for the 21-22 school year. It was a trustee motion brought forward. Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I'm going to ask General Manager Wendy Dobson, Manager of Stopper, to speak now.
Good evening, and thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. At the November 24th, 2021 board meeting, Stopper submitted a report to provide information in response to the motion listed in this report. Stopper has faced many challenges with delayed buses for many reasons. Drivers resigning due to vaccination status disclosure mandates. With reduced capacity restrictions, we've added new routes which required additional drivers. And in our current environment, we have had a number of routes that have been canceled due to drivers being absent for illness and isolation requirements. Approval of this motion would require that Stop Bar add the following number of students. For grade 2 students, that changed eligibility, it would be an additional 549 students. For grade 5 that have changed eligibility, it would be 408 new students. This increased number of students added to our existing network could add an estimated 19 additional bus runs and approximately 12 bus routes. Stop Bar unfortunately does not have the capacity of drivers to add these routes at this time. In addition, Stop Bar has a current annual deficit of approximately $8 million. The financial impact of freezing transportation eligibility for the 21-22 school year is estimated at an additional $600,000. That is the end of this report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director Dobson, for the detail and certainly the data that you've provided was very helpful as well. I'll just wait for trustees to ask any questions, and I'd specifically turn, I believe this was a trustee motion by Trustee Green. So if Trustee Green has any comments, I'd certainly welcome them at this time as well. Okay. Seeing no questions from the trustees, and based on the details provided by Director Dobson, the request within the motion is not approved. Thank you, Director Dobson, and thank you, Director Swaroop.
Thank you.
There are no other trustee notices of motion this evening, and that brings us to item 21. Having no further business, I now adjourn the meeting for Wednesday, January 26th, 2022. Thank you, everybody, for all of your hard work this evening, and thank you to all staff and trustees. Have a great evening, and we'll see you a little later. Bye-bye.